So Chris Bay and Sami Callihan, of course, there's all this discussion, isn't there, about the AEW Impact Wrestling working relationship. Last night, of course, we had Double or Nothing, which I enjoyed thoroughly. Tons of Double or Nothing content here on the channel. We did a live watch-along for nearly 5 hours. We did a reaction stream. We did loads of previews. So if you want your Double or Nothing fix, go to the channel. Be sure to check that out. But obviously, last night at Double or Nothing, we saw the Impact World Champion, Unified Impact World Champion Kenny Omega successfully defend the AEW World Championship at that show against Orange Cassidy and Pac. During the match also, Kenny Omega did actually use the Impact World Championship and the TNA World Heavyweight Championship as a weapon to assist him in retaining the AEW World Championship. Obviously, the AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship is still very strong, even if Don Callis is no longer an executive vice president of Impact Wrestling. He is still part of that storyline, as is Kenny Omega. Now, two Impact Wrestling stars have teased possibly going to AEW in the future. Now, these were two teasers specifically for Double or Nothing last night, but I think it opens up a lot of questions and a lot of possibilities for the future when it comes to these talents. Now, the first name is Sami Callihan. Now, Impact Wrestling star Sami Callihan did tease a potential appearance during last night's pay-per-view Double or Nothing in Jacksonville, Florida. Callihan tweeted out quotes, and this was literally just before the show went on the air. I think it was actually while the show was on the air, actually. It might have been whatever. Sami Callihan tweeted, quote, "I feel like playing some poker tonight." Now, obviously, it was then thought, oh, is this a possibility that Sami Callihan was the mystery 21st entrant in the Casino Battle Royale for Double or Nothing? Of course, that wasn't the case. In reality, the 21st entrant, the surprise 21st entrant for that Casino Battle Royale last night was former WWE superstar and NXT Cruiserweight champion Lio Rush, who made his AEW debut during that match. It wasn't in the match for very long at all, by the way. He was in and he was out in the space of a couple of minutes. Another name, though, from Impact Wrestling did tease possibly showing up last night. That was Chris Bay. Now, one Twitter user tweeted out, quote, "Random thought, Ethan Page made his Twitter account blank right before he debuted at AEW Revolution in the ladder match. Chris Bay currently has his Twitter profile blank, though is still listed with Impact Wrestling. What if Bay shows up in the Casino Battle Royale as the mystery person?" Now, Chris Bay quote tweeted this and said, "I mean, ... and then used the big eye emoji, and it was a gif of him with Ethan Page. Of course, if you've watched any of Ethan Page's vlogs, you would see that Chris Bay was often in them, hanging out with Ethan Page, The North, all those guys. So obviously, we now know after the fact that Sami Callihan and Chris Bay did not show up at Double or Nothing, but it does go to show that they are interested in the possibility. And I've been saying for a while, I mean, when the Impact Wrestling and AEW working relationship was first established last year, I did quite a few videos talking about crossovers we'd like to see, talent we'd like to see from Impact Wrestling in AEW, talent from AEW would like to see in Impact Wrestling. And one of the names that I said I would like to see go to AEW would be Sami Callihan. Why? Because of the relationship with Jon Moxley. Now, Jon Moxley, Sami Callihan have a ton of history from their time on the independent circuit in CZW as well, the Switchblade Conspiracy, and now, to be honest, now is almost the best time for it. And not just because of the working relationship between Impact and AEW, but also because Jon Moxley really at this point is really embracing his sort of deathmatch roots. And obviously he's, as I mentioned, cut his teeth, probably quite literally, but cut his teeth in CZW with the likes of Sami Callihan, with Eddie Kingston, with Nick Gage. And obviously Nick Gage has got all of this popularity right now with GCW, but also because of the Dark Side of the Ring documentary. And there is a bit of a renewed focus and a renewed spotlight, not just necessarily on deathmatch wrestling, but that era and that group of guys that now are wrestling, you know, in the mainstream for companies like WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, but also have that history on the deathmatch wrestling circuit in companies and promotions like CZW. So we know that recently we've had Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston as a tag team. I thought last night they were going to win the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, which sucks because I would have preferred Moxley and Kingston to win because I just think they're so entertaining, and I think that whole tag team is so much fun. And like I said, for me, it sucks a little bit that they didn't come out victorious last night. I know there's lots of discussion, isn't there, at the moment, whereby Jon Moxley could be going on paternity leave and maybe he's taking some time off because Renee Young is just about to give birth to their first child, their daughter. So maybe that's why they didn't win last night. I don't know. I just think that you could do something really fun with Moxley, Kingston, Nick Gage, who I still think is going to show up in AEW at some point, by the way. There was rumors, wasn't there, that he could be the mystery 21st entrant. Now, how does Nick Gage work in AEW? I have no idea. I mean, it does... Even AEW is being, slightly out there in terms of, certain aspects and doing... they have their own style, shall we say, but they are willing to embrace, deathmatch wrestling, certainly Japanese deathmatch wrestling, all that kind of stuff, different aspects of wrestling. Nick Gage in AEW would be wild, absolutely wild. But imagine you could, AEW loves their factions, right? How many different factions have we got in AEW at this point? Whether it's the Elite, whether it's the Inner Circle, the Pinnacle, the Factory, Death Triangle, the list goes on and on. Jurassic Express, the list goes on and on of all of these different factions that we have in AEW. Why not have a faction that's based on the CZW days or the deathmatch wrestling days? Why not have a faction of Jon Moxley, Eddie Kingston, Sami Callihan, and Nick Gage? That would be so much fun. It would be crazy, and some of the matches and some of the angles that they would do would probably be nuts. And the violence would probably be up a level. Again, I don't know how it necessarily would work with Moxley and Nick Gage right now, because are they kind of feuding with GCW? Again, I don't know. I'm not totally, I'll be totally honest, I'm not totally up to date with that kind of the promotion GCW. Of course, I'm aware of them, and you see whenever they have shows, you do see all of the popularity on social media, certainly when Moxley's been showing up in recent weeks with Nick Gage and Joey Janela and that kind of stuff. So who's to say that they don't go in that kind of direction of going, look, maybe they just do a faction of these guys that have known each other for a really long time, have just brutalized each other in some of the most violent matches with barbed wire, death matches, nails, thumbtacks, fluorescent light tubes, glass, you name it. Why not put a faction together that? I think it would be really unique. I don't know if AEW really needs any more factions. They've got enough of them, but that would be a lot of fun. Obviously, the flip side of things, like I've mentioned before, Jon Moxley coming to Impact and teaming up with Sami Callihan, maybe challenging for the Impact World Tag Team Championships. I don't know if I see that at this point. When the Good Brothers were the Tag Team Champions, I could potentially see something like that. I could have seen something like that, especially when Moxley was feuding with Kenny Omega over the AEW World Championship after Omega had won it. I could see a situation where, because Kenny Omega was kind of hiding out in Impact at that point of time, I could have seen a situation where Moxley invades Impact, if you will, to try and get after Kenny Omega, and whilst he's there, he bumps into Sami Callihan, and maybe they team up and then try and take the Impact Tag Team Championships away from the Good Brothers because of their connections with Kenny Omega. Of course, that hasn't happened. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. The Good Brothers, I don't think, are anywhere near winning the Impact World Tag Team Championships at this point. I mean, they lost how many times in a row to Finn Juice? Was it twice, 3 times? In a variety of different matches. Carl Anson Carl Anson pretty much takes the pinfall in most matches that he's in at this point. Violent by Design, Joe Doring and Rhino are the Impact Tag Team Champions right now. So frankly, I don't see Moxley showing up in Impact Wrestling at all. I think it would be the other way around. And Chris Bay, Chris Bay's immensely talented. I don't know the situation on his contract when it expires. He signed at the beginning of last year, I think. So that would have been 2020. So I would assume he probably has at least a year left on his deal. So Chris Bay isn't going anywhere anytime soon. As far as why his Twitter profile has been turned blank, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. I haven't heard any reasons or rationales behind it. Could be storyline. Could be a case of he's planning on doing something else. He's planning on doing a bit of a rebrand. He's posting a lot of sort of inspirational, thoughtful messages and quotes and sort of mantras on social media. Again, what that's about, I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see. It could be a storyline thing, could be a character thing, could be something completely different. So once we hear about it, once we see about it, obviously we'll cover it here. So interesting, though, that these two stars did tease appearances last night. Maybe they were just doing it to create some buzz, but maybe they're trying to send feelers out to say, you know what, I do want to go to AEW, I would be interested. And like I said, if they could get that deathmatch wrestling faction going in AEW, I think it'd be awesome. I'd love to see it. Now, some other things I do want to talk about before we wrap things up in today's Impact video is Impact Wrestling star Matt Cardona, because Matt Cardona has suffered a bit of a serious injury, it looks like. The former WWE superstar will have to spend the next 12 weeks recovering from a nasty orbital bone injury. Impact Wrestling confirmed that Cardona, I can barely speak today, Cardona will miss 12 weeks of action as his face heals. This is due to an attack from Brian Myers on the show last week. They tweeted out, quote, Matt Cardona will be out for up to 12 weeks with a fractured orbital bone after Brian Myers' attack last week. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know how legitimate this is, because I know that Matt Cardona, again, I don't know when it comes to the most recent set of Impact tapings, I don't know how long he was there for. I do know that he was on vacation recently. He was in Hawaii with Chelsea Green for, it was at least a couple of weeks, or at least a week or so. And that was, I don't know if that was coming out of the Impact Wrestling tapings, or I don't know if that was after being there for a brief period and then going. So, 12 weeks of action, that's what, 3 months? So maybe it might be in a case where Matt Cardona did suffer an injury and he thought, you know what, I want to get it fixed and I can come back in a couple of months' time. 3 months, now, so we're practically in June at this point. So you're looking at June, July, August. So are we looking at a situation where Matt Cardona misses Slammiversary? If that is the case, that's massive. That's huge. That's really disappointing for him and disappointing for Impact Wrestling. So fingers crossed that's not the case. It might just be a case of, as I mentioned, he had a slight injury, and sometimes with pro wrestling companies and promotions, when it comes to talent, certainly with injuries, sometimes they overshoot it. They overshoot about their return and recovery time. So maybe it's just a case of him being out for the remainder of the upcoming episodes of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, and maybe not being involved right up to Slammiversary, and then he comes back at that event. I don't know how that would work, but it sucks. I think he's been doing a decent job in Impact Wrestling so far. Frankly, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I maybe would have expected a little bit more from him. In the sense that when Matt Cardona was released by WWE last year, I was really advocating for him to go to Impact Wrestling because I felt that would be the best place for him. I felt that would be the opportunity for him to really compete in the main event scene. I wasn't totally surprised when he went to AEW. Of course, he's got a relationship with Cody Rhodes, which, as we know, is very beneficial when it comes to working in AEW. But I felt at the time that I look at that AEW roster, and when he came in, and I know he was actually featured in a prominent position, teamed with Cody Rhodes, faced off against members of the Dark Order. His last match was at All Out last year, was that 5-on-5 match against members of the Dark Order. And I looked at that at the time and I said, well, that's a good spot for Matt Cardona. But I looked at the roster and said, well, okay, what's he going to do? What's he going to achieve there? Is he going to win the World Championship in AEW? Don't see it. I don't see that happening. Is he going to win the TNT Championship? It's a possibility, but even just by the sheer depth of roster that AEW has, I don't know if a TNT Championship run would be for him in the near future as well. On the flip side of things, and I know people like to criticize me when I say this because they say, oh, you always say this. You say this about so many names, but names like Matt Cardona, you have a better chance of achieving significant success in a company like Impact Wrestling. You have to remember these guys are independent contractors. And when you're independent contractors, all you have to care about is yourself. Sometimes people have to remember that pro wrestling, it's a bit of a selfish industry. You have to think about yourself. You are your own LLC. You're your own company. And you have to figure out what gets you over, how you can succeed, how you can make yourself more valuable to whoever you're working for or who you're going to be working for in the future. You have to make yourself valuable and relevant. Now, he went into AEW and I guess made himself valuable in the sense that he signed a short-term deal. AEW wanted him there longer. He wanted to do something else. I always said he should go to Impact Wrestling because I look at Matt Cardona in AEW and I say, well, you're not going to win the World Championship. I say if you go to Impact Wrestling, it's a possibility. You've got a much better chance of getting over with that audience. You're going to have better opportunities to compete in higher profile matches in main events. You can actually win a World Championship there. And I don't know really what I expected of him coming into Impact. Once I saw him show up earlier this year at Hardcore, I thought, great, here we go. Because not only did he have, obviously, the momentum coming out of WWE, but also he had the buzz of recently being on AEW television. So it felt like a gay double bubble. This guy's really got some momentum behind him. And he's feuded with Brian Myers, but it's a little bit like... I don't know. I might be wrong here. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, but I just kind of felt and maybe expected more from him. And I don't know what that would be. If I was Brian Myers, I know he's got his Major Figure Wrestling podcast, and I know he does his own thing. And in reality, maybe it's difficult to kind of buy into this feud between Matt Cardona and Brian Myers because at the same time they are promoting a podcast in which they're hosting together. And I know that kayfabe's dead, and I know that everyone knows it's a work, but it does play into your mind a little bit that it. The suspension of disbelief, it's like watching a Marvel film. You know that the guys, Josh Brolin and Robert Downey Jr. probably get on, but, they're not coming out, they're not hosting a podcast together the next week. You can have an element of suspension of disbelief, and I just don't know if I get that with Matt Cardona and the Brian Myers feud and that kind of thing. And if I was Matt Cardona, I think I'd look at him and I'd say, look, this guy has been a babyface for what? 11 years, 10 years, something like that, when he's during his time in WWE. And I would say, look, do something different. When you've been released by WWE and you've gone to AEW, you've gone to Impact, you have this creative freedom. Do whatever you want. Reinvent yourself. Do something completely different. This Matt Cardona isn't a ton different to the Zack Ryder we saw in WWE at this point. And for whatever reason, that Zack Ryder, it might have worked for a moment in time. In 2011, 2012, whenever it was, Z True Long Island Story, United States Champion, he was super over, don't get me wrong, woo, 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 you know it, all that kind of stuff. The crowd loved him. Madison Square Garden was cheering for him in the opening match of Survivor Series in 2011. They loved Zack Ryder. But that was back then, and times change, things evolve. What's the difference now between Matt Cardona and Zack Ryder all those years ago? Not a lot. Matt Cardona grew a beard and he got a bit more tan and a bit more jacked. The character is still kind of the same. You know, he's a wrestling nerd and he enjoys figures. That's great. That's Matt Cardona. But maybe people want to see something different. People want to see an evolution. People want to see a different side to Matt Cardona. Maybe a more serious side to Matt Cardona. A Matt Cardona that you look at him and go, well, physically, you've got all the tools to succeed. You're a well-known name. Maybe turn heel. Maybe show a bit of grit and aggression. Maybe do something that's out of your comfort zone. Maybe change your character completely. Do something. Because I think that's the issue that I probably have with the Matt Cardona presentation in Impact Wrestling and just in general post-WWE. It's kind of been more of the same. You know, you can say always ready and always here and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like as a fan, I'm waiting to see that big Matt Cardona. Okay, that's what WWE didn't get. That's what WWE were holding this guy back because he had this talent, and I just don't see it at the moment. I don't see it. So maybe if he's out of action for 3 months, it looks like with this broken orbital bone, maybe he can do something different. Maybe he can do something a bit more unique. Maybe he can change the character up. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come back wearing an Undertaker mask or anything like that. I know he did tease that on his Twitter account, on his social media. I don't know if he's necessarily going to do that. But, you know, why not do something different? You've got time, and you've certainly got a place in Impact Wrestling where you can do something different. Go out there, win a world championship, prove the doubters wrong. Because it kind of feels like at this point that maybe he is a bit content of just where he is. Oh, you know, I'm Zack Ryder, I've got my podcast. Chelsea Green, I'm sure, is going to come in. Maybe that's the key. Maybe Laurel Van Ness comes in, the hot mess, and they're just, not only do they have the crazed bride at this point, they have the crazed groom. That would be interesting if Matt Cardona did something completely different and went, you know what? Chelsea Green's coming in. Everyone knows we're partners. Maybe I just sort of lean into her gimmick and do something completely different. Maybe we do something completely unexpected. We come in together. We're a partnership in Impact Wrestling. We take it by storm. She can be the Knockouts champion. I can be the world champion. Not out of the realm of possibility, that one. And if they do that massive change, I think that'll be very beneficial to his career. So we'll wait and see what happens. Hopefully, of course, he recovers quickly. Finally, I did want to touch on this. I know there's a delay about this because there's been so much going on in the world of pro wrestling, especially with AEW Double or Nothing and all the WWE news at the moment. W. Morrissey, I did want to touch on this because W. Morrissey cut the promo of his life this past week on Impact Wrestling. It's incredible. The former WWE superstar brought up a really personal experience during last week's episode that is generating a lot of attention. Now, Morrissey, if you haven't seen it, he cut a work shoot promo on the fans this week, and he brought up his peers in the pro wrestling industry. He described the events that went down during a scary seizure episode, and Morrissey cut a furious promo about how fans and other wrestlers turned their back on him. This left Morrissey with the task of handling things on his own. Now, if you're not aware of this incident, I believe this was... So when was he released by WWE? It was in 2018. It might have been that year in 2018, 2019. I believe it was at a House of Hardcore show backstage. And W. Morrissey, I don't really know the reasons as to why. I mean, you can speculate, but I don't think that's fair. Video footage came out of W. Morrissey, Big Cass, Kazakhstan, whatever you want to call him, backstage, and he was having a seizure. He was having a seizure, and it was very scary. Tommy Dreamer was there. There were onlookers there. I think there might have been some doctors there that just happened to be there because they're fans of the show or anything like that. But they were there and they were looking after him. And it was scary. It was really, really scary. And he got taken to hospital. Thankfully, he was okay. And we know the demons that W. Morrissey has had. And he turned this into magic this week, W. Morrissey. It was fantastic. This is what he had to say, quote, "Every time that I've fallen down in this industry, every time that something bad that's happened to me, or I made headlines for all the wrong reasons, people kicked me while I was down. When I had a seizure in front of 1,500 people in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, those fans who love us and adore us, you know what they did? They took out their phones and instead of dialing 911, they recorded it and put it on YouTube. And then everybody in the world got to watch me at my most vulnerable points. My former co-workers, people that are here behind the scenes, people that are in this locker room. Do you know what they did when they saw that video? When I was at my lowest point, they laughed at me. Nobody reached out. People thought I thought were my friends. They didn't even reach out. Not even a text, not even a phone call. Hey man, how are you doing? And for 3 years, nobody contacted me. Then lo and behold, when I come back to wrestling, all those same people that hadn't talked to me in years, all of them reached out. Hey man, you look so great. So happy to see you back. I always knew you were going to come back strong. Do you know what they did that? Do you know why they did that? They wanted to know they had that powerful piece on their side. When I make it to the top of this industry, when I make it to the top of this company, those people, they want to be on my team. So they reach out and they buddy because they want to be my friend now because I'm doing great. Now, we're not sure, of course, how much of that promo was 100% authentic, but to be honest, I thought, the best promos and the best anything in the world of professional wrestling are all based on reality. And Big Cass, W. Morrissey, cut a promo based on reality. And if you watch that promo, a lot of that is real. Now, I'm sure people did reach out to him and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure he's just reaching out and basing promos off real life there. But man, it was compelling. It was riveting. And I mentioned before when W. Morrissey first made his debut and the news broke that he was going to make his debut of Impact Wrestling, I mentioned it at the time. If this is a W. Morrissey that is fit and healthy physically and mentally, Impact has a massive star on their hands. Watching that promo this week, they've got a big, quite literally big star on their hands. I would not be surprised in the slightest if by the end of the year, W. Morrissey is the Impact World Champion. He is just on that much of a roll right now. And he can talk, he can walk the walk, and he looks like $1 million. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. I thought it was brilliant, and I just wanted to shout it out because I thought it was absolutely fantastic. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the Impact Wrestling news stories that we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.